Do you want to try giving it with your slides, or do you want to just pause there?
I think that let's pause it there.
Okay.
I love my slides so much I could talk forever.
Okay.
So
Do you want feedback after each person, or should we?
Yeah, and maybe feedback. Like, whatever you think.
Yeah.
oh,
So
that's not fair, Brian.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian.
That's really nice. Oh, look at that.
Yes.
Sounds better. Yeah.
See, now you really have the silence you wanted.
Yeah.
Juliet.
Yeah. So I loved, and I'll ask Karina to share. Everybody else can share as well. I loved the focus that you had on what was their story like before, and what's their story like after your involvement in there. And so I'm going to share with you the things that stood out for me as like potential for the story to grow, and the places where I feel like you can really make that story pop even more. So the things that stood out for me is in the before, here are families who have recently arrived, and that really poignant phrase of they had things to say, but nowhere to say them, and nobody to hear them, and that paints a really compelling picture of a need that you want to meet. It's a really core human need of wanting to be heard. And so especially if you're a family that you just moved here from far away and you feel like you have a voice, it's not like you don't have a voice, you have a voice, but you don't have a place where people can hear you. That's a really important need that you're going to meet. Fast forward, and the part of the story where it feels like you can make it pop even more is, so why do you now need African Heritage Ventures? So there's a way to tell the story where you can say, imagine, first group of families, it's only 5 of them, and creating a community space for 5 families to come together and for people to hear, that was challenging enough, but we did it. But now imagine that those 5 families have grown to 850 families.
Yeah, that was a compelling part of that story too.
And to paint a challenge there, now there's a whole different set of challenges. There's already a community space. Now, this story is not a story of starting from 0 to get to 5. This story is actually a story about a community that's already grown and now needs to sustain. And this is where you introduce a new challenge. And it's not the challenge of these are people who had a voice and didn't have a place to tell their stories. It's a different challenge. And so the before that you need to paint here is, here's 850 families now. And they have a place where they're heard, but in order for this to grow, they need to have control over their own destiny. They have their own stories, they make their own jewelry, and they need to be able to
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt, so please continue, and I will.
And they need to be able to provide for their own growth under their own terms. So this is a different compelling need that you're tapping into. Right? The need for people to have agency over their own future, that's a really powerful and deep human need. And to tie the idea of African Heritage Ventures as actually the solution that's going to, what's the story look like with African Heritage Ventures, is these families now have the power and the control over selling their own products to get money for themselves to use, so that nobody else can tell them what to do with that money. I think that's the powerful motivation in the story, that people are like, oh, this now we get why African Heritage Ventures means for this family. It's not just about moolah. It's actually about who gets to have control over that moolah, and it's these families that get to have control over it. Painting that story, I think, would make it really powerful. But I don't know, what do other people know?
Well, I mean, it sounds really exciting. I'm jumping into this. I know other people have more context for you and your business than I do hearing this. As somebody who, I mean, I'm really inspired by this story of, these, like how it goes from these 5 families to more. As somebody who's not part of these over 800 families now, one of the things that I'm immediately curious about is how do I connect with what you're doing, right? And I imagine in what you're building out, that'll be clearer. But certainly if I'm thinking about expanding on these ideas, that would be a next step that I would love to see. Is like, okay, you have my attention, you have my interest. Now tell me about this for-profit thing, and how do I, as a person who has maybe some expendable income, how do I connect to this story in a meaningful way? Another thing that I thought was really compelling is this idea of a voice, you know, and especially one of my favorite parts was when you gave some examples, like for instance, people who are already making jewelry, but people don't know that they're making jewelry because there's not really a platform or all of these things. So this idea of a voice, where at first when you said that, I was like, okay, I wonder what a voice means right now. You know, like what kind of a voice is this? What are they saying? And with that example, that's an example where someone's expressing themselves, something about their identity, it's something about who they are and how they want to be in community in this space, doing all of these things, right? So it's a part of a voice, but to expand upon that picture a little bit, that helped me understand more about what this idea of voice might mean for you and your business here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
That's good.
Juliet.
Ooh,
This
that's
little
good. Right
cameo.